we're seeing more and more people come to us with that. Like, we've tried this accounting without accountants, and it worked when we had 3 people, but it's not working when we have 10 people. Accounting has to move at the speed of business. The way I like to think about it is not necessarily a continuous close, but a continuous set of data on which you can make decisions. So you're not waiting data-driven decision making, but it's real time. New clients come to us and our existing clients, they're demanding that. And again, there's platforms out there like Puzzle that allow us to do that very, very easily.
To take the analogy from engineering, like the infamous 10x engineer, what do you do to help them get along this curve?
If you can transform here, you can take that to wherever you go next.
Welcome to Tech Finance. I'm your host, Sasha Orloff, repeat founder and current CEO of Puzzle, and self-professed finance nerd. On this show, we dive into the pulse of B2B fintech, from newly funded startups transforming the office of the CFO to major industry shifts, deals, and partnerships that are reshaping how we think about finance. You'll hear the most important developments, essential analysis, and of course, AI innovations. This show is brought to you by Puzzle and the Turpentine Podcast Network. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to Tech Finance, hosted by me, Sasha Orloff. And on the show, we're going to dive into, as usual, the pulse of the office of the CFO. So this can be major industry shifts, deals, partnerships, reshaping how we think about finance. And of course, there isn't a podcast that we can go by without saying the word AI. So we will talk about that a little bit more. So today, I'm very excited to have Greg Capitolo here, partner and co-founder of Attivo, who serves both as a CFO for Attivo's clients, but also thinks a lot about the industry. And I think is one of the few accounting firms out there that has a head of technology and innovation on their team. So they're constantly evaluating what are all the latest and greatest advances in the office of the CFO. And Greg usually sits here in the Bay Area. And so he's right here at the pulse of everything. So I'm excited to dive in. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sasha. It's great to be here.
Well, this is great because you get to see what is happening. You're at the pulse, but let's get started with what is Attivo and how do you view yourselves as fitting into the market?
Sure. We think of Attivo as a fractional finance and accounting firm that provides full stack finance and accounting services. And so when you think about that, we start with how are you managing vendors, payroll? How are you working with your clients and customers or customers? How are you thinking about revenue recognition all the way through financial statement production? And then on the strategic side, how are you thinking about your metrics, your management reporting, investor reporting? And then how are you thinking about capital allocations like fundraising, debt or equity? Maybe we're seeing a lot of work in the American dynamism space. And so there's a lot of capital leasing now and equipment leasing that's coming about. So we help across that broad spectrum on a bespoke basis. So we fill in on a fractional basis where our clients need us. And it's been a lot of fun building the company over the past 8 years. And I've done that with my partner, Rebecca Lee, and we've had a lot of fun. We've grown to about 450 clients. 180 professionals on the team right now, which again has been a lot of fun to watch the clients grow, the satisfaction that the clients have, and then watch the team grow as well to support that growth.
And just to kind of give the audience a little bit of a perspective, what are your primary customers, or where do you view your sweet spot in the market?
Good question. And so we work mostly with venture capital backed firms from pre-revenue up to, let's say, 50 million in revenue. And that, now with many of the technology changes and AI coming along from an employee standpoint, that can be from 2 employees up to 300, 400 employees. But, as you would suspect, we're seeing hiring slow down a little bit. People are not as aggressive in hiring, given some of the tools that are out there that we might be talking about later today.
So I'm going to ask a similar question, but from 2 different vantage points. So one is when we speak with venture capitalists, the name Attivo comes up quite a bit, which you should feel really proud of. What is your view of why they mention you as one of sort of the leading firms for venture-backed companies?
When Rebecca and I started the firm 8 years ago, we thought about how we could be different from what we'd experienced in the past. And both of us had been in this space for 10 years prior to that. And as we looked around, we felt that the firms that were providing services to venture-backed companies felt more like placement firms. And at Attivo, we wanted to have a culture around Attivo so that when employees joined Attivo, they felt like Attivo employees. And so to create that culture, we invested in professional development and collaboration. And bringing those two things together, when we provide services to our clients, I think we do that in a much stronger way than maybe other firms out there. And so that, if somebody is receiving 1 to 3 hours of professional development each week and has the opportunity to collaborate with their colleagues 1 to 3 hours each week, there's a lot more experience that that individual brings to the client's service. And I believe that that makes a big difference in terms of how clients perceive us and their investors perceive us as well.
I think this is going to probably get into a question soon about views of sort of AI and sort of human and AI involvement in what the future. But I want to get to now the perspective of your clients. So, we're the Switzerland of accounting, and we believe accountants and accounting firms have a very important place in this future, today and in the future. It comes from me growing and scaling a few companies and sort of realizing that accountants are the source of truth and honesty for the most important decisions, capital allocation decisions in a company. I do see a conflict a little bit in the Valley, mostly with first-time founders or first-time business owners. The second time they're like, yeah, I get it, why it's important. Because they've either sold a company, bankrupted a company, or raised capital, and they realize, oh my God, this stuff like really matters. How do you think about what is the trigger point in which first-time business owners or first-time founders think about accounting? What gets them to come to you? Is it burnout? Is it capacity? Is it, like they're scaling, they're making mistakes, margin pressure? Like, what is it that drives adoption?
I think whether it's a first-time founder, which we love to engage with and work with, or somebody who's founded several companies, it is the realization that accounting, financial analysis, financial reporting takes time. And as you look at allocating time to getting things right, and you had mentioned maybe there's errors or mistakes that they're seeing, they realize that the founder, the broader management team realizes that my time, their time might be best spent developing product, looking at the market, doing business development, and that if we bring in a professional to help us establish systems, processes, automation, and reduce, or I'll say it this way, increase accuracy in the data and the timeliness of the data. As you said earlier, they're going to make better decisions about capital allocation, how to prioritize initiatives based on data-driven decisions. And that's ultimately, whether it's Attivo or other firms like Attivo, we're all trying to get to the point where we can help management teams, founders, CEOs make data-driven decisions.
It's hard to make data-driven decisions if you don't realize the importance of data, especially around financial health and building enduring companies and raising. I talk with a lot of founders, especially in the early days, and they just don't realize that this is like the foundation of their dilution, their ability to raise capital, what their capital raised, what the value of the company is. And when you mess it up, you mess it up. Bad data in means bad data out. All right. This is not too dissimilar to what the world of modeling looks like, what the world of ML looks like, and what the world of AI is going to look like. If you don't have a good foundation of accuracy, you're going to get bad insights out of the other side. Before we kind of dive in, what is your point of view on AI as an industry and then AI as it relates to accounting? That sets a foundation, and then we can start diving into some of the specifics.
AI as an industry, I see that as very exciting. We at Attivo are incorporating that into our daily activities. And as an individual, I'm incorporating AI into my daily activities. So it's a lot of fun. It improves productivity and efficiency. And I believe through the use of AI, outcomes can be better if you use it wisely. And so I'm very excited about the progress of what AI is doing. At the same time, I believe that, I'll say I have some concerns about how rapidly AI might be changing the world or environment, or the work environment, the personal environment, and that we collectively need to think about that and really have maybe some more leadership in that area to say can humans keep up with the rate of change of AI, and how do we look at that? Like many people, I don't believe that AI should be regulated. I think we're beyond that point, but I think we need to be aware and be thinking about how the world is going to change in the next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, I fully agree. And that's probably, many podcasts filling my feed every morning about this topic. Let's now sort of start applying this towards our industry, the accounting industry. I think there's two interesting perspectives that I think you can bring to the table. One is as the CEO of a firm that does accounting services, amongst many things, finance accounting services, like there have to be a set of things that you're both excited and scared about. And then you also, as you mentioned, have a firm with, I think you said 180 people on the team. There's things that they're probably excited and scared about. So let's start first with your perspective. And then maybe what are some of the things that they might come to you that they talk about and say out loud, or maybe they don't?
Right. So, applying AI to accounting and finance has been, for me, it's transformational, but it's also a lot of fun because it moves us as accountants, as financial analysts, as CFOs, to really being in a position to provide more value-added services, value-added advice. And so we move to a more advisory role as a result. And so an example I give, not just to clients, but also to our team members, is that through the use of certain platforms, we have to start thinking about, if at the accountant level, let's say, if we were looking at 80% of the transactions as possible exceptions. And so let's say a client of ours might have 200 transactions a month. We'd look at 160 of those. Now with AI and the quality of the platforms that are out there, we can look at 10% of those transactions instead of 80% of those. And in addition, most of the tools flag exceptions and they understand what the exceptions are and say to us, please investigate this. How should I record this? And so there's a significant amount of productivity enhancement that occurs. So people have time, at least our team members have time to think about what the data means and how to advise clients in making those decisions based on this data. And that can be I talked about the transaction level, but even at the financial advisory level as well, where if you think about what might have been done in Excel or Google Sheets and on a standalone basis, and now you might apply an AI tool to those, again, productivity enhancement. And our team members now have an opportunity to spend more time with management teams, founders, talking to them about, let's say, cash runway, revenue growth. Maybe there's a revenue recognition issue in the forecast that we have to look at. All much more important things than processing transactions or ultimately the guts of building a model.
So I obviously agree. I could imagine there's two audiences. So we simplify this a little bit into, there's accounting and review and then finance. Each of those roles might have a different perspective about productivity. What do you say to your team that might be doing bookkeeping or accounting, that might be doing review, that might be doing analysis around the velocity of how AI is evolving in the market?
We talk a lot about transformation internally. Maybe I'll step back here a little bit and say, if we take a look at accountants have been doing, at least for the target market that we have, let's say 50 million and less, accountants have been working with QuickBooks Online and NetSuite for 2 decades plus. And now, firms like Puzzle, like yourself, have come in and said, you need to think differently about how you do your work and how you perform your work every day. And so that's the first conversation that we tend to have, is that transformation is here. It has to happen today. And so let's think about how we do our work differently. And then what does that mean for you if you were working with 4 clients on 10 hours a week? It means that you will probably be needing to engage with more clients over the course of that week. But also, the transformation is not just from a productivity of producing financial statements and performing analysis, but it's the opportunity to provide insights as opposed to just processing transactions. And that's a big step as well, because you get in your comfort zone of processing transactions, and maybe you're not thinking as much about how that data is helping the business. And so now everyone has an opportunity to really help the business, whether it's how you're paying vendors, the vendors you're engaging with, and then it might then be going up to maybe more strategic, what's the structure of your contracts? How can I help with commission plans, things that are just more strategic where we may not have had time to do that before. And so it's really exciting. I'm very excited by it.
Yeah, I am too. I guess if we dive just like a little bit into that fear and concern, because I'm also probably just asking for advice myself, because I try and tell this to my team as well. I think people are at different levels of the adoption curve. And I view this as like there's 3 phases, at least today, how I tell my team. One is I just kind of use it as search. Like, it doesn't really impact my job. I think about it as a better way to get information that I don't know about, whether it's like learning with the kids, like, why is the moon change and how do tides work? Or like, how do spiders make webs? Like this, the second phase is like, okay, I kind of do it as an assistant to do the thing that I direct. Like, I know what to do and it does the thing that I need to do. Mm-hmm. And then kind of, I think level 3 is the next biggest unlock, which is, can it help me battle test my thinking and gain a different perspective and then go execute the work? And so I try and get my team from like 1 to 2 to 3 as fast as possible. And usually when it comes, they're like, oh, this isn't taking my job. It's just making me way more powerful and way more effective for my end client, whether for Puzzle, it's firms like yours, whether it's, my sales team with their clients, whether it's our product team to deliver better products to clients. How do you help? Well, first of all, do you agree or disagree with that evolution? And 2, what do you use as a tactic to tell your team to get them like on the continuum to see that they can become the quote unquote 10x accountant? To take the analogy from engineering, like the infamous 10x engineer. What do you do to help them get along this curve?
Well, I agree with the curve that you're saying, in my own experience, using AI personally as a search engine, let's say, and to have a conversation about how to search better, and then move into, in terms of its use today. Ultimately, as I think about it, these activities that I'm doing manually, how can I get them into an AI bot, let's say, or an AI agent, so that they're just done automatically? And then how do I create a partner through an AI agent, as you're saying, to bounce ideas off and give suggestions or provide more information for better decision making? So I agree with that spectrum. In terms of working with the team, when I think about it, it's mostly around productivity. And to say, okay, if I think maybe more on getting to that third level, how can we use this tool for financial analysis? How can we use this tool for providing better insights to our clients? And the back and forth, now we're collaborating not just with our team members, but we have a tool that has access to all the information that has been placed in the web, and we can collaborate with that tool as well. And so it's opportunities. So in terms of communication and how to get people to move in that direction, it really is by demonstrating. So if we have an all hands meeting or a group meeting, and to say, okay, here's our core FP&A team. Here's what happens when I hook it up to this platform, or here's what happens when I hook up my financial model to this platform, or a series of historical trended monthly financials. What can I do using this platform to enhance my understanding of the business, and ultimately then make a better model for the client that I'm working with? And so it's demo just to see the power. And it is really incredible Even just on some little things where something might have taken 2 hours, we can see that we can reduce the time to get to the same results that took 2 hours might be 30 minutes. And it's that fun to see that. And then, from there, when we see those results, it's more time to think about what those results mean. One, I'll say we're testing testing the trust of the agent or the tool that we're using. Has it come up with what we believe is the right answers? We check it. And then two, how do we dive deeper into that? And I've already mentioned that it's the ability to dive deeper into information to make better decisions. And so ultimately you said, how do we get to that third point? It's really through demonstration. I say, we have this tool. Let's see how we can use it to improve our efficiency and effectiveness in delivering information to our clients.
Hey, we'll get back to the conversation in a moment after a word from our sponsors. All right. One of my favorite tools that I use and we use is Notion. Notion is used by thousands of startups around the world as their connected workspace for everything from engineering specs to new hire onboarding to fundraising. Notion has a special offer for listeners. 6 months of free Notion with unlimited AI, value of over $6,000. So you can access the limitless power of AI right inside of Notion to build and scale your company and team with one tool. Get 6 months free of Notion with unlimited AI, along with custom templates when you apply for notion.com/startups/puzzle. Once again, that's notion.com/startups/puzzle. Go for it. Building a company is hard enough. You shouldn't have to second guess your numbers too. One day, an investor might ask you a question that you just can't answer. The next, you realize your books aren't as clean as you thought. Sound familiar? Puzzle is rethinking accounting from the ground up with an AI-first ledger that eliminates repetitive tasks and gives you real-time financial clarity so you can focus on running your business, not fixing spreadsheets. Accounting should work the way you do. Fast, intuitive, and built for the future. Come check us out at puzzle.io. So I love that answer because if we pull the thread a little bit on one of the underlying fears, I think of a lot of AI, it's around the tension of how do I charge for something where there's productivity gains? And the world knows that there's productivity gains to be had. I'm seeing in our data that there has not been price compression for firms. In fact, we've seen firms even be able to raise their rates because the end client has sort of already come to terms with how much they're paying and they're getting more value. And if you're getting more value, that typically gives more negotiation leverage. But I also see the tension for firms that have been on a billable hours model for a long time, or maybe still are on a billable hours model. How do you think about that tension when you are leaning in and adopting the productivity, you are delivering a better client experience because of that, and you're able to spend more time? How do you think about it, and how should the rest of the industry think about it?
I mean, I'll say for Attivo, we are moving from a time and materials model or a billing model to a managed services model. And we see that transition/transformation will take place over the next 12 to 18 months. We already have a series of managed services out there to support our clients. One of them, as you're aware, uses the Puzzle platform as a core ERP, let's say. And we see that that's the way to, that tension is going to move us in that direction. Now, there will also be, at the same time, managed services that have a structured fixed price, as I just talked about, but there will be services that will provide outside of that is beyond, whether that's accounting advisory or financial advisory, that come outside that, I'll say, that managed service box that says, we'll give you a set of financial statements that we've put some financial analysis around. But if you want us to build a 36-month financial model because you're going out for a fundraising and help you prepare for the due diligence, that moves outside that box, and we bring our experts in to support those processes.
I love that. I think that's great. If we move over, because I think you're one of the more tech forward firms. And I want to caveat this. Sometimes when you ask AI directly, it tells you the answer that makes you want to feel good. And so you have to add in, please don't tell me what I want to hear.
Right.
Tell me what you actually think. So I'm typing that into my prompt box right now for you. There are, I think, at least 3 different ways to help start incorporating AI into a practice. There is using the existing software with an agent layer on the top. And we see those in the venture community, which is you don't have to switch your core general system. You have this agent that just kind of works on top of it as best as it can. You have this new sort of AI native thing that's coming in to these new modern ERPs that are growing from the ground up that have built AI embedded into the system. And then there's just using it independently. So sort of like connecting maybe your legacy ERP to an MCP with like Claude Code or OpenAI and using it sort of directly. How do you think about the pros and cons of each of these solutions, and how do you evaluate that from a firm mindset?
I think they're all solutions we're using today. In terms of the direction that Attivo is headed, we've already begun, and we started this about 12 months ago, investing in tech and innovation. And as you said earlier, we have a lead, John Truong, in that space, and we have a team underneath him that is evaluating the newest platforms, and we'll say AI native platforms. And so we're moving in the direction for us right now of focusing our business around those platforms that have proven they are AI native and have integrated with the broader spectrum of processes from accounts payable, revenue, ERP to financial modeling. And we're incorporating that into our business and putting some AI tools on top of those platforms that already exist. And so we've looked at our business and say compared to those platforms that have significant VC investment and have made the decision that we don't have the resources to keep up with what those companies are doing. And let's partner with them to the extent that we can. And let's understand their platform and how we as Attivo can use it and make it better for us as well as for the platform in terms of providing advice back to the platform. So that's the second component. We have not yet moved to that third component where we are using AI without one of those underlying platforms and saying, okay, go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, build me a revenue recognition system. And here's a bunch of prompts that we'll put in there to make it perfect. We would rather, at this point in time, go with a AI native platform that is focused on revenue recognition and customer enablement, enhancement, relationships. And we'd rather use that to help us and put maybe a small amount of AI around that it might be unique IP for Attivo.
Love it. One of the things we hear a lot these days is this kind of human in the loop. And it gets said a lot. I'm assuming that's part of the practice at Attivo. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
When I think about human in the loop, it's around making sure that the systems and processes are functioning properly. And I'll say that maybe there's 2 words associated with that, or maybe 3 words. 1, it's setup and implementation. 2, it's security. And 3, it's trust. And I think there is, with those 3, there is a place for the human in the loop to be very successful in terms of making sure the systems are right, you're choosing the correct systems, you're implementing the appropriate processes, there's the right security around those systems, and that you've structured all of that together so that we trust the data that's coming out. And I think that at least today, with the human in the loop, there's ways that we can look at that and continue to improve that. Now, AI is regenerating itself and to some extent, and so we'll look at places to improve. But I also think today that human judgment is still very important, and making sure that somebody is responsible for what those systems and processes are producing is important as well, so that the users of the data, they are still going to want to trust, I think, that someone has checked the data, and that's the place for the finance person or the accountant to be in the loop.
I agree with you. I want to dive in a little bit more on this like trust issue, because AI by nature is a black box, and it also is a probabilist. LLMs at least are a probabilistic, meaning you can ask the same question today with the same data. You can type in the same question again and you'll get a different response. Sometimes it's just a couple words. Sometimes it's a slightly different thing. You never know. That's like my kids. Follow the instructions and you never know what you're going to get out. To me, this is going to lead into the second question, but the thought process is there always existed this kind of trust in accounting. It's kind of the core principle. And when you think about what it's like as public companies, there's like the preparer and then the reviewer and then the controller and then the independent review and then the CFO and then the auditor and then the auditor of the auditors. Like there's always been this human in the loop despite all of these sort of layers. So to me, on one hand, it doesn't feel like it changes that much. And back to a comment you made earlier, like, maybe we reviewed earlier a set number of transactions or like a 3 or 5% of transactions, and we use that as a proxy. So maybe we can get higher confidence and trust in more things because the system is able to do that. I guess though, like, what am I missing here in that fear or the outside narrative? Like, there's always wanted to be a human in the loop. There's always wanted to have somebody on the bottom of that signature line at the end of the day. To me, that doesn't feel like it changes, but that doesn't also seem to match the narrative in the market sometimes. How do you reconcile those two potentially conflicting thoughts?
I'll say I haven't necessarily thought about it that way, Sasha, but as I think about accountability and I'll say the training and experience of the individual that's running those systems and processes will remain important to us. You mentioned that in the marketplace, in the community, maybe there are certain companies that say this is accounting without accountants. And we have found that as complexity grows, as a company scales, those firms that say that there's accounting without accountants, something gets missed. And they come to us or a competitor like us to say, this is not working. We're scaling. This is not working for us anymore. And we need to really have somebody that can be held accountable. We need somebody that has good judgment because accounting and data analysis is not black and white, it's gray. And they want somebody that they can trust, that has a proven record, that has experience to help them make their decisions. I haven't thought about, from the standpoint of Attivo, of what, should we have an accountant or not have an accountant as part of the processes. And even today, we're seeing more and more people come to us with that. Like, we've tried this accounting without accountants, and it worked when we had 3 people, but it's not working when we have 10 people. And we need your help to help us just manage that piece of the business.
And probably go fix and clean up all the nonsense that the thing was autonomously running in the wrong direction without any oversight.
That's true. Yes, we do have to do that sometimes as well. More often than not.
Yeah. So one of the other benefits that I get quite excited about is as a business owner or a founder myself is the ability to get insights faster. But again, faster wrong insights don't really matter.
Right.
You want accuracy first.
Right.
But I can't help but, see around the Bay Area, there's billboards all over the place. And I see one aspect of this, like accounting without accountants. And then the other one I see is this move towards the end of the month-end close. Or it was, we could save you time. And then it was like the 1-day close. And now it's the 0-day close. And now it's the like continuous close. What's your point of view of this month-end close versus the continuous close versus the 0-day close, 1-day, what do you think about that?
Well, I'll say close is a time when you say everything is done. Like, okay, we've officially gone through a checklist and it's done for that whatever period of time, whether that's 0 days, 1 day, 5 days. The way I like to think about it is not necessarily a continuous close, but a continuous set of data on which you can make decisions. So you're not waiting. So, we have this term internally, accounting has to move at the speed of business. And if you want to know, what vendors you've paid in the last day, there should be a platform and process out there that allows you to know the vendors that you paid today, up to real time. If you want to know what invoices you've sent to customers and what you've collected and what your cash balance is, there's no reason at this point in time why that can't be real time in some way. And that's where we're trying to get to, is so that you as the client, you as the management team can make decisions with real time data when you need to make those decisions. Right now, in terms of the technology that we have, is it going to be perfect, in the middle of the month? Probably not perfect, but it's going to be enough to make real investment decisions for the company. And then when we come to the end of the month, we'll set a date to finalize everything and say, okay, from an accounting perspective and a GAAP perspective, these are the numbers that are final GAAP. But you could have made decisions throughout the month without having those GAAP numbers because you have that data real time. And so it could be called a real-time close. I'll say it's real-time data-driven decision making. Yeah, we like that term, data-driven decision making, but it's real time that you can do that throughout the month. And when people come to us, new clients come to us and our existing clients, they're demanding that. And again, there's platforms out there like Puzzle that allow us to do that very, very easily. And it's wonderful to see those platforms put us in that position to be successful in that way.
As we sort of wrap up, even though I want to talk about this for a long time, but get respectful of our listeners and for your time, you've probably spent more time than the average firm evaluating different types of tools that are out there. Again, from bolt-ons to here, and you're constantly evaluating because it's constantly changing. That's a good thing. What's your hierarchy of logic to think about? How should you evaluate new opportunities? Because post this podcast in general, where you're located, I'm sure everybody does and has pitched you, or you have seeked out and wanted to learn. There's a moment in time in which you see a demo or test something.
Right.
As you know, these things also evolve quite quickly. Help share your evaluation framework for, I guess, other firms or other modern software tools working in the office of the CFO. How do you think about the evaluation criteria?
One is the team that is leading the company. So just in terms of their insightfulness, their background, their experience. The other, as we continue down the path, what can it do for us today? How are they thinking about their product roadmap? And then ultimately what we're looking at, is how does it take or improve our productivity? How many transactions do we have to check? How accurately is it integrated with I'll say the whole tech stack that people think about? How is it helping us in reconciling accounts? There are now systems out there, platforms that will reconcile the accounts for us. So we no longer have to do detailed reconciliations. And so ultimately, I think that wraps up into productivity enhancing tools. Is it accurate? So, we have found that as new features and functionality come out on some platforms, all of a sudden the numbers, let's say, don't make sense. And we work with those platforms to get them back in line. And then we're looking for people, what their vision is, for the next step, because these tools like yours change every week, every month, or I'll do it the other way, every month, every week. And we're excited by the new features and functionality that arise. It is super fun to see. And the way that I'll broaden that to management teams are able to interact with ERP systems is exciting to see. So adding all those features and functionality. But we'll sit down and run through a demo close to see how it's different, how it improves our productivity. And we'll run through the real-time reporting features. That's what we expect in our platforms today, and what it looks like if we were to do an official close, what that reporting looks like and what that accuracy looks like. So we take it through, and it probably takes, as we're looking at new platforms, it takes us 15 to 45 days to do an evaluation. And we have limited resources. So, we've partnered with a number of platforms and are excited by what they can do. And so breaking in, we want to see the newest and greatest. And I think we were really out in front there with the team to say, as we look at these new platforms, what's going to take on NetSuite, what's going to take on QuickBooks Online, and found tools that were really better And we adopted them, or we're working hard to adopt them earlier, not just for Attivo, but also for our clients, because it provides them with better information.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of reasonable concern. I think there's a lot to be excited about. So I'm going to close on two optimistic questions. What gets you the most excited for accounting firms and technology over the next, normally I would say 5 to 10 years, but giving a of admission, let's call it 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. I'm excited because we have the opportunity to learn constantly. And so much new is coming out. And Attivo was built on the focus on learning, collaboration, a growth mindset. And this time really requires a growth mindset. We're going to be transforming our business and the way we think about serving our clients. So that to me is the most exciting thing that's facing us. And to overcome those challenges and create that transformation is what gets, that energy required to do that is what's exciting. So
you already answered my second question, which was, I think in the market, there's the two mindsets, and there's the fixed mindset and there's the growth mindset. In the world of a fixed mindset, I think AI gets pretty scary. This is what existed, and AI is going to do some part of here. That said, the growth mindset helps us with these things, and it helps keep us viewed towards the future, and the future is abundant. There's more in the future. How do you keep that mindset? How do you keep that growth mindset in your position with a big firm?
As you said, you have to be positive all the time. You have to be excited about transformation. And it really is going down to the individual level and talking about that growth mindset. We've been doing things certain way for 2 decades. And now we've got to change in the next 12 months the way we think about our job. And that's got to be exciting for you. And so how do I every day go around and talk to people, the team members about that and say, let's get excited about this. Change is happening. It's good for us as a team. It's good for you as an individual. For each of these individuals, Attivo might just be part of that journey that they're going through in life or their professional career. And if you can transform here, you can take that to wherever you go next. And I want people to be excited by that.
That's awesome. Well, it's unquestionable that the focus on the customer experience has gotten you to the place today. And the ability to grow and continue to add value and focus on your customer is a core differentiator. So keep it up, and thank you for coming. But Greg, this was great. I appreciate the time and the insights.
Thank you, Sasha. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to Tech Finance with Puzzle and Turpentine. If you got value from this episode, please share it with anybody building or funding the future of technology. And please leave us a review wherever you're listening and tell me about what you want to hear more of. If you're looking for accounting software you'll actually love to power your company, check out Puzzle.io, the modern accounting platform for the AI era. Tech Finance is part of Turpentine, the awesome podcast network behind Econ 102 with Noah Smith, Turpentine VC, Complex Systems with Patrick McKenzie, and so many more.